No soul too small. I have always been someone who becomes emotional whenever I see an animal who has been hit by a car and left for dead in the middle of the roadway. I recognize that in many ways, all souls were not created equal in terms of our individual purpose once we incarnate, and most certainly, the thought processes of all humans were not created equal when it comes to how we tend to see the value of animals, particularly those creatures who do not ordinarily live among us in our homes. For as far back as I can remember, I have had this affinity for all creatures and desire to rescue them whenever they appear to be in distress. Why, I still remember a time as a child living in Ohio when I set out to do just that. It was winter time, and there must have been at least a foot and a half of snow on the ground. And boy, was it ever cold out. I was probably no more than 10 years old at the time. It was early morning, and I was still in my pajamas. I had looked outside to see how much snow we had gotten the night before, and that's when I noticed the robin. It looked like it had been stuck in the snow. Worried and certain that it needed rescuing, I quickly donned my father's hunting boots that just happened to be sitting near the back door. Who should care that they were at least 6 sizes too big for me? I had a rescue mission, and I was up to the challenge. I made my way outside, and through the snow I went, slodging my way in desperation as best I could toward what I presumed was a half-frozen bird by that point. About 5 steps into my trek across this mini Antarctic, and that's when I lost a boot. I realized that it was too late to do anything about it, as my bare foot sunk down into the snow. Talk about freezing! There was no turning back now. I was in it to win it. I noticed the bird watching me as I drew ever closer. Don't worry, little bird, I'll help you, I thought, as I now found myself within only a few steps of this sweet robin, who had been so patient as I made my way across the vast expanse of our very large backyard. And that's when my reality hit. I wouldn't be able to rescue them all, nor would I need to. This became evident as I watched while the robin effortlessly took flight, leaving me standing there in my pajamas, with no coat, and with one foot buried deep in the snow. Now I suddenly felt stuck, but I was also grateful that the bird was okay. In the many years that have followed, there would be many rescues, attempted rescues, and those creatures which I wish I could have rescued, but unfortunately was too late to save. For those who couldn't be saved, I have now found a way to honor them in the best way I know how. As mentioned in my last post, I have decided to create a small creature cemetery where those animals will be laid to rest who I cross paths with, who have already recently passed away, or who I have rescued, but do not survive whatever trauma has befallen them. Well, with the exception of perhaps planting a few more flowers, I completed building that cemetery yesterday. The first resident was a cat that had already been buried in my yard earlier this year. I found the cat lying deceased under a very tall tree as I was leaving work earlier this year. It's my guess that the cat had fallen out of that tree. Not willing to leave him lying there or simply tossing his remains in a trash can, I brought him home and gave him a proper burial. I've chosen to name him High Life, and the cemetery is named High Life Small Creature Cemetery in honor of this cat. The cemetery was built around where High Life had been buried. Next to High Life lay the two robins who flew into the windshield of my car last week, passing away on impact. I have named them Robbie and Robin, not very original, I know. And yesterday, while making a run to get more supplies to complete the cemetery, just outside of my subdivision on the same road that the bluebird was hit a few weeks ago and the robins just last week, I found a squirrel who had apparently just been hit and was left laying in the road. His body was still warm to the touch and soft when I picked him up. I named this creature Rascal. I realize that there are many people out there who have no understanding of why anyone would do something like what I have talked about here, and that's okay. Those people may not understand why I would stand in a parking lot in the freezing rain to pick up worms and put them back in the grass, either. Or why I would rescue a mouse that had been bitten by a dog just to hold it in my hand as it breathed its last breath. Or why I would care for a butterfly that arrived from its cocoon unable to fly, hand feeding it 3 times a day for 2 weeks until it passed away, just to at least give it some chance at having known life, if only for a little while. I happen to know that there is at least one person out there who truly gets it, and I believe there are more. For those of you who get it, welcome to my circle. For those of you who don't get it, always TJ.